Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business, presented by FL Montreal. My name is Dan Delmar, along with Mike Newton of FL Montreal. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Dan. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Nice for you to be back. And this evening, we're going to talk about investing and wealth management with Sam Younès from Altium Wealth Architecture, and an independent firm, Mike, with a guy who's pretty ambitious.
Yeah, I've known Sam for, it's got to be 20 years now. And, I'm a few years older than him. So I've kind of watched his career progress. And I say he's done very well for himself. But also equally important is the integrity and the class that he brings to things. So it's going to be an interesting show.
So an independent perspective to wealth management, and later in the program we'll talk about people culture with Alida Eid, HR manager at FL, about keeping that people culture even as your business grows through mergers, acquisitions, and any type of change management, basically. So Alida joins us on that later in the program. But first, as usual, news and notes. And Mike, our ongoing theme, of course, is COVID resiliency, and we like to share some wisdom as best we can about whatever we read on the subject. And Harvard Business Review, this framework for leaders during difficult times, how they can face difficult decisions. So it provides a more technical framework, I guess. So morals, ethics, and responsibilities. What are your thoughts on how Harvard lays out the responsibilities for managers in these times?
Well, I think what's happening is, when things are drumming along nicely, we have a tendency to just fall into a rhythm. We don't, there's no introspection. There is no questioning of our own morals and values and ethics. And I think when we hit difficult times, we have to start, looking at what we've been doing and how we want to be remembered and how we want to run our organizations. And, the HBR review article basically, starts in with discussions on the whole context of, the specific morals, ethics, the responsibilities you see as a leader, and where you place yourself in those organizations. And then it's interesting because one of the areas that they go into is is a little bit of a legacy discussion at the end of the exercise, and that is really, what do you want to be seen as a leader, and what would you want to be remembered for? And again, when we're chugging along and everything's good, we can go anywhere from profit to volume to a whole bunch of things. But when things get rough, I think we start to look at the immeasurables, which could be culture, it could be ethics, it could be how you hold up under pressure. And, one of these things really is taking a look at what you do. They talk about, looking at a decision, take some time, look at what your morals and values are, and then just look back at a recent decision that you have made and see how that fits into context with the decision you made based on what your morals are. Do the same thing as you're looking to make your next decision, and try and make sure that all the time that, you don't lose sight of who you are and who you want to be as a leader, as the organization, ensuring that at the end of the process that your decisions and your actions are really congruous to where your value set is.
It's really a tense time for all managers, and there's the sense that that any move could be really a fatal move in some cases. What would be your advice in terms of just dealing with the pressure day to day, and how to have a system that makes sure you're making the right decisions at each step?
Well, it's difficult. We've lived in a world for a long time now that says, perfection is the answer. And if you can't be perfect, then there's something wrong with the way you're either executing or leading. And the reality is, for centuries, we've always talked about, making mistakes as your best course of action to learn from. We live in a very proud society where a lot of people, when they make a mistake, are going to hide it or cover it up. One of the things that I think is huge, and especially while you're trying to maintain a culture and an environment with the other managers or with your team, is admit when you've made a mistake. Now, what do you do? How do you fix it? And move forward. And the whole exercise is you're trying to provide a healthy example. Trying to be a model. Our role. And unfortunately, I think you look south at the political race right now, and I don't think you want to use the role models, and we see the implications of what's going on. I heard something the other day that, said that if Donald Trump had worn a mask with either MATA or an American flag on it, he'd likely be 10 points up in the votes right now. And it only goes to show you that influence has such a large role in the people around us. And, when you make a mistake, admit you made a mistake and move on. Be, use the term, be a man about it, own up to it, and learn from it. And I think sometimes that's the hardest thing for leaders to admit.
One thing that I thought was interesting that they do mention on the qualitative side is to clarify your worldview for your team. Why is that so important in these times?
Well, the worldview falls back, in the way I interpret it, falls back into your morals and your values. And is that, play in line with whether that is either the environment or responsible leadership or fiscal responsibility or giving back to the community. The decisions that you make and the roles that you play within your organization should, obviously fit well, not only in your business, but in the world around you. And I think that's the harder part right now. I mean, we could take this topic and run for hours on the effects of this on hiring and recruitment and, trying to align your goals along with what that of future employees looks like. But we don't have enough time for that. But it's clearly a huge model right now. I mean, a few weeks ago we talked about the measurement of success. Well, this falls into the measurement of success. Is success based purely on what that bottom line is, or is that measurement of success your carbon footprint or your ability to help people in times of need? And I think this is where you have to take a step back and reassess and reevaluate who you are and the message you want to send, not only in the way you act, but the way you want your organization to act.
HBR offers some interesting tips for leaders that are feeling the burden. And one in terms of self-care, which I think is interesting as we talk more about mental health in the workplace, is gratitude and appreciation. And Mike, I'm seeing, casually as I read studies here and there, the benefits of gratitude just keep coming up. It's just good neuroscience to be grateful.
It is. I mean, very, very few organizations, run by only one person. And there's part of this, to me is one of the basic flaws or underlying problems with our society. We have a hard time saying thank you. We have a hard time appreciating when somebody does something for us. You hold the door open for somebody, you get a look like, what, I'm not capable of opening the door myself? Or, and we need to learn to accept and appreciate the fact that people do things for us and give them, the kudos and the thanks when they actually do them. There's an awful lot of our society that needs some rethinking at the end of the day, and that goes anywhere to our organization to walking up and down the streets of Montreal.
Well, thank you, and I'm very grateful to be here with you tonight, Mike, having these chats after 11 seasons. And this evening, we're going to talk about something that's actually pretty rare: an independent wealth investment firm. So Sam Younès is here, the founder and president of Altium Wealth Architecture. Sam, welcome to today's Entrepreneur.
Thank you, Dan. Nice to meet you. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hey, Sam.
So our first question is the easiest one, of course. What is Altium?
Thank you. Altium it's an independent investment firm. We offer investment management services and family office services. So the more known term is a multi-family office. So we're totally independent. We deal with private families across Quebec and Canada, but many families, therefore multi-family office, which in itself is a fairly new business model in Quebec and Canada, simply because wealth is newer than in Europe.
Yeah, the family office concept, I think, has existed for a long time, but it's only been to a very exclusive elite group of families that would have had their own family office, which basically runs the gamut of services. And you can go anywhere from providing investment services to tax services to estate. It's a wide range. So it was really modeled off of some of the larger, wealthier families across the country, and is now become quite a popular environment. Though I think, Sam, one of the things that's interesting about yours is this consistent approach to trying to stay independent through all of it. We see a lot of the family offices having tied into insurance companies or tied into investment companies, or we see them in the professional firms as well. And I think a lot of them lack what you do bring to the table. So maybe talk a little bit about how you manage to keep that independence and what services you're offering in that.
So I'll give you, a brief idea of my experience. I've been in private wealth for 20 years approximately. I've known Mike for an equal amount of time. Worked at a local bank, worked at a global bank. I was executive director up to 2013 when I started Altium. And initially, I started Altium in partnership with a local accounting firm. But 2 years later, did a friendly management buyout in order to be able to have all the business flexibility needed, full objectivity, and be able to, to offer all the families that we work with whatever they need is without being limited by compliance reasons. For example, we're legislated by, the securities legislator. An accounting firm is legislated by the accounting norms. Trying to mix both is really not simple. And therefore, coming back to your question, Mike, I firmly believe in objectivity. You could be independent and not objective. You could be objective and not independent. But in our case, we don't manufacture a solution. There's no Altium product to be sold. We give access to our families to whatever best-in-class strategy or professional that is available across the country. We work with many families and therefore are not dependent on one client or one family alone, and we truly believe that objectivity is a key to a successful approach over the long term.
You also, yes, you work with a number of families, but I think you're very particular, and you have certain restrictions or limitations in terms of who you are going to take. Maybe give us a little bit of an insight in terms of what is that perfect opportunity for you.
So Altium works with private clients and private families. Today, we work with roughly 90 families across Quebec, New Brunswick, Ontario, and BC. Our target client tends to be an entrepreneur, une famille en affaires, a family that is or was in business, sold, and is looking for the right arm to help them protect their wealth over time. And grow their wealth in many cases. And protecting and growing wealth is not an easy task. Wealth is more than dollars. And our business model is based on a limited number of families. Typically, our clients have between $15 to $200 million of total financial wealth. And the smallest team possible, extremely knowledgeable, that is extremely well treated. I think that everything starts with your team members. Culture, we're going to talk about it, I assume. Culture, values is key, is critical. So a great team to take care of our clients and our ecosystem of professionals.
So why, if I was looking to either change investment advisors, or I won the lotto, or I sold my business, why would I choose Altium over, say, some of the big boys, Scotia and RBC, that have the reputation and have what most people deem to be a more secure environment? What would attract me to an organization like Altium?
Our craft is to deal with a larger private complex wealth. So you have a lot of good offerings out there, but the financial world for many families is complex, is complicated. And that's one of the reasons why I started Altium 7 years ago already. It's complicated. You have banks, you have brokers, you have private wealth divisions, you have branches, you have independent insurance firms, you have independent portfolio managers. So all that for an entrepreneur is often complex, and they look for a firm, a right arm, to help them navigate across all this, find best-in-class solutions, and not only handle the money component. When we talk about family office services, every family is different. Every generation within a family is different, and every individual within a generation is different, and all that evolves over time. So we do the job. Our craft is larger private complex wealth. Our target client usually have, over 40, $50 million, as I said before. And we bring an institutional approach to private wealth, meaning that we cover all asset classes. It takes more than stocks and bonds to protect, preserve, and grow wealth over time. And there's no reason why a wealthy private family and client could not be invested like large pension funds or large university endowments. So those are some of the reasons. I would end on saying that our team, it might be cliche, but our team is key, and the quality of our ecosystem. We're not accountants, we're not tax experts, we're not lawyers, we're not insurance experts, but managing large complex wealth is our craft, and we accompany our clients over time throughout all this with the Altium team and our network, our ecosystem of best-in-class people that share common values.
Sam, we were talking about the challenges of being independent in your business, and having met a lot of people in related fields, and having worked alongside the banking system. There's a lot of advantages that go to that sort of operation. You have a lot of the operations, a lot of the marketing, a lot of the software already good to go. You had to create a lot of that yourself. Tell me about that experience.
It's indeed, Dan. It's not obvious to be independent in the financial industry, at least to start in it. There are high barriers to entry. You need first all the accreditation, and you need the systems, the operations, all the IT, all the technology, and the scale, clients, assets, suppliers, especially with our business model, considering that we don't manufacture investment solutions. We have access to best-in-class money managers across all asset classes, and we've negotiated institutional access everywhere. In order to negotiate institutional access and operational efficiency, you need scale. So putting it all together was quite a fantastic journey. We're blessed to be where we are today with the team, the clients, the platform, the business. But it's not obvious to start an independence business and maintain it in such an industry. I think that you have to be highly focused and not to try to be everything for everybody, and always focus on being effective and efficient as a group.
Let's take a little trip down memory lane here, Sam, we talk about the platform, you talk about setting things up. I mean, you and I met a little over 20 years ago. You were with a very large institution at the time, decided, maybe around 2013, 14, 5, 6, 7 years ago, that you wanted to build and start your own investment firm. You and I met for lunch one day and had a conversation about starting your own now or joining a larger organization and building something from an existing platform. You decided to go the second route. I showed the difference in our age between us. You see, after 10 years more in business and with more partners, I would have opted to go it alone. But hey, that's just me. So you moved into a very large organization, another large accounting firm, very popular, very successful, very reputable firm, and started to build this wealth management business. Give us a little bit of that, and tie that into how we started this whole session earlier on, which is culture and ethics and values.
You are taking us back in time, and I do recall your advice, Mike, before starting Altium to do it alone from the get-go. Doing it with a big organization, with an accounting firm, a local accounting firm, was a great experience. But it led after 2 years to a buyout and being totally independent. I think that independence, that total objectivity, not limiting your business model because of any partnership, being able to truly serve your quality clients as they deserve is key. And also in French, they say être maître chez soi is something important. So it was a good experience. It was a hard experience at times, but you know it. You helped me with the buyout. You've been part of the Altium story since before it started, since our brainstorming sessions.
That's right. So I will correct. You didn't carve out a fuller Landau, so it wasn't us that you left. So.
No, it wasn't you.
But
it's been a great successful story since. I believe in quality growth. I believe that proper growth have a rhythm. It's not all about dollars. It's about a purpose, and it's about a quality and sustainable growth without cutting corners.
People have asked me over the years why I refer people to you, and I think it's one of the reasons why you ended up leaving the larger organization is you had a very clear set of morals and ethics and the way you wanted to do business and the environment with which you wanted to do it. And I've always told people that I found you one of the few people over the years that I can rely on in terms of integrity. And I think part of the move to doing your own thing, as much as it was about being your own boss, was also about ensuring that you could provide to the marketplace the morals and the values that you have lived with and which you wanted to pass on.
And thank you, Mike. And it means a lot to me. And talking about values, without being cliche, but values are not simply something you see on a presentation or top down. Values are something you live every day, and you focus on conversation by conversation, meeting by meeting, and you build them bottom up. And that's how you build a culture and real values. And in our case, excellence is part of it. I learned that, perfection does not exist. It's motion over perfection. But it's not a reason not to aim for excellence. What we do is a craft, objectivity. For us, being objective in everything we do and thinking about our clients before ourselves is key. Integrity, service, if you talk about a purpose, wanting to take care of somebody else in what we do is key, is critical. And, if we talk about hiring, I look for character, I look for competence, but I look for a lot of heart because, any person working with us needs to deeply want to take care and service another individual and family.
That plays into your whole cultural environment within the organization, the way you set up your teams, the way you expect the people that work with you to serve us a client the exact same way you would. Is any of that scripted? Is that set up? How do you get them to understand the moral value side to what you want to do and make sure that when they go out and you can't be there to hear what they say, that they perpetuate your goals and your vision?
How to codify your DNA, how to codify your culture. I don't have an answer for that question. What I know is that we did a full D360 last year, trying to strip how we do things and how we think about this and our departments and our functions and the task for every function and the process for every task. But throughout all this, you don't want to become rigid and you want to remain very agile and continue, to grow and adapt. So I don't have an answer, but it's a meeting at a time. And it's a constant focus on the fact that culture and values are critical in any business.
Sam, real quick, as the marketing guy, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the name and also architecture. I find that interesting that you put that in there. Why architecture, and what kinds of marketing challenges have you undertaken in this unique business?
We believe that it takes solid foundations building for the long-term perennity architecture. So there's a link. In terms of marketing, it's a bit shameful. We've been blessed to grow thanks to our clients and their referrals and our network because we've been focused on the business, on creating the machine, on oiling it, and on making sure that we delivering our promise. So this year, in our 7th year, is actually the first year that we're building, and preparing a marketing strategy. So we haven't been great marketers. We've been blessed with a nice growth, with great clients, with great friends of the firm. But now we're starting to just show the firm a little more. Having said that, our approach is niche. We enjoy being low-key. It's a highly confidential business. So our challenge here is how to, appear a little more with taste while remaining low-key and confidential. So Dan, if you have advices, I'll happily take them.
And coming up, Sam Younès of Altium Wealth Architecture gives his one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur. But first, we talk to our experts. And today it's HR manager Alida Eid of FL Montreal. Welcome back, Alida.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Mike, we're going to talk about people culture, and especially as businesses change, there's a lot of more mergers now, acquisitions, and a lot of movement. So how do you keep your people culture similar enough, and how do you stay true to your values? What are your thoughts on that first, Mike? How you've done this many times. How do you create that consistency, even if you might be taking on twice as many employees?
Yeah, the whole discussion of due diligence and mergers and acquisitions is, from an HR perspective and a cultural perspective, is really new, in the grand scheme of things. And, traditionally you go talk to your accountant, you talk to your lawyer, and it's number crunching and it's legalese and all the rest of it. The one thing that, that I think, and this is where, a leader's expertise rolls in, is really this whole discussion of what do you do during a due diligence and how often does it even come up that we're going to look at people and culture as part of a due diligence process. Alida?
Unfortunately, still not often. We don't pay much attention to the people component. For some reason, the reality is during transactions and change, we still proceed without much involvement of HR teams, coaches, and change consultants. During due deal reviews and analysis, we're very much concentrated, like you said, Mike, on financial and legal BVs and stuff. Most people typically associated with a checklist, and what they want to know is, do I have to fire anyone? And let me just, make sure I cover any liabilities. So it's more seen as, HR is still seen more as compliance rather than focusing on people.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, the files that we've worked on together, and, we were talking about this earlier, is, the first time we went through this, we looked at it as part of a transaction for ourselves. And, we went in looking at it from a compliance perspective. What are the employee files? Who are we getting? What's that type of environment? And we, even ourselves, didn't really focus on culture and fit and what does that mean? And, there's a very large part of what we do that negates culture from a financial and from a legal perspective. It really is hard and fast. And the one area that I think suffers is most people, when they go into a transaction, don't always answer the question, why am I doing this? And you'll talk to people that'll say, well, I'm doing this because I need people. They have great people, they have great systems. Alida, if we follow that logic and we don't take into account what that means to integrate people, what's the likelihood of success?
When you really focus on your traditional, let's say, checklist, where it's mainly admin and compliance, like we said earlier, and don't focus enough on people, let's say through surveys or culture assessments and stuff, what tends to happen is we often see these types of transactions fail because you end up with culture clashes that lead to turnover, sick leaves, decrease in productivity, and sometimes even loss of identity. So what you thought was going to be a good relationship or a good combination, or that you will end up complementing each other, ends up being that the relationship, well, there's two different cultures, different values. We've mentioned that a lot too earlier, and that you realize that overall you're just not aligned.
It's funny, in the past you've given me the example where, if you were doing a due diligence, you were buying machinery, you would be remiss to not test the machinery and see how that machinery fits into the assembly line. Most of the time we forget to do that with our people, and I think that's where the value of the work that you're doing and the focus on culture comes into play. There is a big gap, I think, between the time that are the concerns between management and employees during and after a transaction, and how quickly they buy into things. I mean, you're talking about emotional side of things. What are some of the things and the time lag, if you will, in terms of adoption?
There's different adoption stages, and some personalities will adapt quicker than others. So in any type of change, you'll have the ones that will jump on board because they're right away, because that's their type of personality. They're agile, they're able to adapt in uncertainty, and others that, no, they need to be prepped, they need to be, they need more information, they have more questions and need to be more prepared than others. But it's just, I always, when I talk about adoption stages, I talk about, it's also applied on the consumer side of things. You'll have the ones that are already there. They're waiting for iPhone 15 or, that model, the next model, because they're there. They've already mastered the product and want more, whereas other people need more time to adapt.
Part of the due diligence exercise, I mean, obviously there are various stages and various depths with which you can do the due diligence work. But, if you really get the opportunity to dig, what you just discussed are some of the things that you find. You will come across the people that are, quicker to adopt and those that don't like change. And, part of the goal, I think, is for you to either, advise the financial people or the due diligence team and say, hey guys, here's where your weakness lies in terms of your staff. And it's nice to say you're going in to buy staff, but you're going to lose half of them because you haven't handled a proper structure and a proper integration side of things.
Correct.
Alida Eid, HR Manager at FL. Thanks so much, Alida.
Thank you.
And now we turn to Sam Younès of Altium Wealth Architecture. And Sam, we ask you for, please, your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur.
Listen, I think that for any business, having a greatest sense of purpose is key. Dollars are important, but it needs to go beyond dollars. So, why before the how? Why are we doing what we do? I believe that being effective is making sure that every single act being done in the business contributes positively to that purpose. Make sure that you're efficient. Always try to spend the least amount of energy possible to achieve the same great result. Focus on people, your team, your ecosystem, your network. Treat them well, be there for them, and be focused. Stay focused. Don't try to be everything to everybody, and have fun. It's quite a ride. It's a fantastic experience, but you need grit, and you have to show up every single day.
A little bit like a plug for a Simon Sinek book there. Put the why before everything, and I do think that ultimately at the end of the day, the culture and the environment of what you're building, and Dan, just to finish up, if you go back to where we started this season, you see this common theme throughout our shows, which is culture and what is defining success. And we're starting to see a very different definition of success with a lot of our guests so far this year.
Sam Younès, thanks so much. And that'll do it for today's Entrepreneur. We are back in 2 weeks' time with Josh Miller. Mike, he's back, and we'll see you then.
Thanks a lot, Dan. And yes, you'll have the big booming voice of Mr. Miller back soon.
Good night, all.
This has been a production of TNKR Media. Good talk.